was not, I emphasize, the fact that I had changed my view with regard to Chinese communism. I had not. What brought us together were our interests, and not because of agreement on ideas or any change in ideas.
How does one go about? There must have been a lot of secret behind-the-scenes diplomacy. You were sending signals, but there had to be a lot going on that even the most astute commentator who didn't know couldn't have seen.
Well, I think first we have to understand why it was necessary to have it secret. And I will make the blunt statement. Without secrecy, we would never have had the China Initiative. It was not possible. They had to have it far more than we. They had to have it because there was great opposition within the Chinese hierarchy itself to any new relationship with the United States. And as a matter of fact, Lin Piao, who had opposed it, took off, as Joe, with a little smile, told me when we first met, on a trip which was to take him to Moscow, and his plane disappeared, which tells us one thing or may tell us something else.
Do you think they liquidated him because of his opposition?
I would not be surprised. That was the implication, at least, that I got from the conversation. But be that as it may, what happened there was that Mao Zedong, and this is, in this case, Zhou Enlai, had made a command decision that despite the fact that ideologically the United States was their major enemy, we're a capitalist country, they're a communist country, that as far as their strategic interests were concerned, that a new association with the United States was absolutely essential. Because while we disagreed totally on ideology, we had one common concern, and that was the growing Soviet threat, the threat to China and its expansionism in other areas. And the Chinese knew that there was no country in the world except the United States which would be able to contain that threat in the event it were aimed at China. And that is what brought us together in one sense. But I should go further than that. If anybody would read my article in Foreign Affairs and other statements I've made prior to and since that initiative was undertaken, they would note that I always come through with this theme. Even if there were no Soviet Union, it was essential that the United States move now, and move when it did, I should say, in rapprochement with China. And the reason for that is fundamentally that 1/4 of all the people in the world live in the People's Republic of China. It has enormous natural resources. And the Chinese people, as Chinese, are among the most capable people in the world. Look what they've done. And I think they had no illusions that because they were furnishing a beautiful state guest house and beautiful banquets and dinners and entertainments and so forth, that as a result of that, I was going to be seduced. And the whole point is when people say I was seduced by them, what did I do for them? What did I do for them that I did not do in the interests of our own country? And the answer is we had
tremendous legitimacy.
We gave them legitimacy, which of course they had to a certain extent already without us. We gave the legitimacy which could only be given by the fact that the United States was there. I would say, however, that they might have looked at it a different way. I remember my late friend, Harold Lee in Hong Kong, this is in the late 60s, at a time long before I had concluded that we should make the move toward China. I said, there was some talk in the American papers that we should recognize China. And he said, you know, those stupid people in the State Department that are talking about recognizing China, they don't understand the Chinese mind, how it works. He said, if they say they will recognize China, the Chinese will respond, you recognize us? The question is, will we recognize you? And when you get down to it, we have to realize it was a two-way street here. It was a two-way street. Putting it very bluntly, and I would summarize it all with this simple way. What brought us together was not the fact that we had common ideas or ideals, but that we had common interests. Our interests brought us together. Our ideas would keep us apart. And as long as those interests draw us together, then we have to learn to live with the differences in our ideas. And that's also true of the Russians.
Sometimes when you talk about China, there's almost a mystical undercurrent to what you say. Do you feel that in any way that you were sent here, put on earth to open the way to China?
Well, I think that would be a slight overstatement. If I did feel it, I'd never admit it. I would say, however, that my reading of history tells me that leaders are usually put in places where they have power when they can serve certain purposes. Some leaders can serve some purpose, other leaders can serve others. I think perhaps of the Americans on the scene at that time, I was the appropriate and logical person. I happened to be the right man in the right place at the right time. I was the right man because I happened to be president. I was in the right place